Madam Deputy Speaker, after months and months of delay, finally we have the Defence Investment Plan, but it's quite simply a case of too little, too late. Too little because there's virtually no more cash than the plan, which led the previous Secretary of State to resign because he believed it would make the country, and I quote, less safe. Too late, not just because the plan is months overdue, but also because much of the capability it contains won't be in service until the 2030s, when the threat we face is right now. For members opposite who don't agree that this plan is too little, they don't need to take my word for it. The Chief of the Defence Staff said he needed £28 billion to fund the armed forces over the next 4 years. This plan is barely half that requirement. And their own Secretary of State for Defence, until a few weeks ago, said that the proposed spending, and I quote, falls well short of what is required for defence and the country at this dangerous time. Because, he said, and I quote, it rises to just 2.68% of GDP in 2030. 2.68% of GDP, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I ask the Secretary of State to confirm that the GDP figure for defence in 2030 under his revised plan remains unchanged? 2.68%.
Exactly.
Which begs the obvious question. If 2.68% by 2030 was a resigning matter for the previous Defence Secretary, why is it good enough for him?
Yeah.
On that subject, it was ironic that the Prime Minister announced the dip at Malloy Aeronautics in Maidenhead, where I also launched the MOD's first ever defence drone strategy back in February 2024. But back then, we were world leaders in drone warfare, having supplied Ukraine with cutting-edge drone capabilities that were not on a press release, but real kit used on a real front line against Europe's peer military threat, the Russian armed forces. So what happened? Labour came to power and put all that progress on hold, paralysing procurement, whilst we waited first for the Strategic Defence Review and then for the dip. But the big question, why all the dither and delay? In a word, money. Isn't the harsh truth that those drones could come into service far sooner, but the government are unwilling to commit the cash before the 2030s? Isn't this the inevitable result of a Prime Minister unwilling to cut welfare, prioritising a bigger benefits bill over properly funding defence? Our people remain our most important capability. Not just our regular personnel, our reserves and their families, but our cadets and our veterans. Now, I was proud to make the decision to buy back the defence estate from Annington, a deal the previous Labour government left untouched. But given that I thought we all wanted to deliver homes for heroes, Madam Deputy Speaker, can he confirm, it's a critical question, it's about the accommodation of those who serve our country, can he confirm that the Defence Investment Plan includes cutting hundreds of millions of pounds from the budget for forces housing, shifting it from this Parliament into the 2030s? Can he confirm that's the case? And can he confirm that he is also cutting cadet funding at the same time and over the same time period? To conclude, after months of dither and delay, it's taken the sudden end of his premiership for the Prime Minister to finally publish the dip in a desperate search for a legacy. But it's a legacy of failure. An underfunded defence investment plan, too little, too late. The men and women of our armed forces deserve much better.
The Shadow Defence Secretary talks about legacy. So let me remind him that under the previous government cut back by almost 50,000 our service personnel. The morale of our troops was through the floor. 46 of the biggest 52 projects were delayed or over budget. And there was an equipment plan without the funding to back it up. I'm also, I have to say, quite perplexed that he wants to raise concerns about the announcement that we've made with regard to drones. We've just literally announced the largest ever investment in drones in our country's history. And when he gets the time, and I know because he will want to look carefully at the detail, he will see that over the past 2 weeks, we've reprioritised activity in order to bring forward spend so that we can deliver operational capabilities sooner than otherwise would be the case. He did mention housing, and I understand why he would want to raise that, because housing is hugely important for defence and for the armed forces community. And I know what it's like to live in armed forces accommodation. And I said in my earlier remarks that we absolutely have a moral responsibility to those who serve to ensure that we are able to provide them with the best possible living accommodations. That is why we have recommitted today to £9 billion of investment over the next 10 years. That will see investment in the housing estate growing each year in real terms over the next 10 years. That is an absolute commitment that we've made today. He also mentioned, and I understand again why he chose to do so, the importance of cadet forces. All of us in our constituencies will no doubt engage with cadet forces. They are an absolute force for good in communities around the country. And that is why we've made a clear commitment to continue to invest and modernise in our cadet forces to continue to improve outstanding opportunities for young people. He asked specifically about the percentage of GDP that we will be spending on defence. I mean, I would just gently point out to him that when we came into government 2 years ago, we inherited a figure of 2.3%. That was the figure that we inherited. It's currently at 2.5% and will be at 2.7% by the end of this Parliament, with a clear commitment to spend 3% in the next Parliament and an absolute critical commitment to spend 3.5% by 2035. The member opposite will have heard the points that I made about the importance of defence spending and the commitment that this government has made to ensuring that defence spending is the number one priority at the next spending review.